All right. Hey, friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Tori, and today I am joined for yet another author interview with the one and only Griffin King. Did we decide it was a king officially? Thiago Abdalla, who is the author of The Ashes of Averin. And Thiago, thank you so much for joining me on my channel today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Super happy to be here.
So, Bo is here
So
bright and
yeah,
early
yeah, yeah.
to
I've
antagonize you here. Um, so if you want to give us, I know you have your cover reveal coming out for The Shade of Madness, which is Ashes of Averin Book 2,
yeah.
tomorrow, which is very exciting. So for those who have read A Touch of Light, can you give us just a brief overview of what is going to be happening in this new book? What can we look forward to? What's new? Are there griffins?
Yes. There are a lot of griffins. So yeah, Alan approves of this monarchist take. So
Yeah.
that's all the
Alan
approval I
Wood.
need.
Alan's the first.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
in.
So I was talking to Andrew Meredith, who was I think it was last week, right?
Yep.
Uh he was, and I told him, I think this book is just like everything I did in the Switch of Light, but bigger and better, which is kind of vague, but uh,
So
yeah,
more
another
griffins.
Andrew Allen, not Andrew Meredith, not
Like I said last week,
yeah.
there's too many Andrews.
So yeah, just to be really quick about it. I really feel like I've matured kind of like my plotting and my characterization. So this book I think it does dive deeper a bit into the characters and their emotions, and it also A Touch of Light did a lot, right? Because it had to set the ground. But I think this book is a little more streamlined, I'd say. But at the same time, I think it's like that gives it the opportunity to be like twice as epic.
Yeah. I don't know, that ending for A Touch of Light was pretty epic. For anyone who's read it, you all know. That was pretty I was very excited when I got to that ending.
Yeah, yeah. To the PMI.
This is your editor, correct?
Yeah, we scheduled this time exactly because my kids are going to be asleep, and
That's I
yeah,
totally get it.
yeah. So yeah, but you should see the ending for Shade of Madness.
Oh, I will. I'm so excited about it. I can't wait.
I think it's like kind of like tonally similar. I don't know if it's similar to Touch of Light, but I mean, I like it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was kind of interesting because I don't know. I know that of your three main POVs, which we're going to talk about in a minute,
yeah,
Lynn has a pretty major following, which I noticed right away. Is a lot of people talk about Lynn and really like Lynn. And I have to give you a lot of credit because I usually what happens when I'm reading books is I kind of have my like character that I sort of resonate that kind of leads me through the book, and I like the others, but there's usually one that I really relate to. And I
yeah,
actually kind of went through a little bit of a revolving door in A Touch of Light because at first, like, Nasha was the first one that pulled me in,
yeah.
which surprises nobody probably. And then
Hmm.
um, Lynn was the one that I didn't connect to as much at first. And then
Hmm.
by the end of the book, she was my favorite character. And I hadn't even realized it happened,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
does a lot of credit to you as a writer because I didn't, as a reader, I was so immersed. I was like, wait, when did I like love Lynn so much? When did that
yeah,
happen? So that was a pretty cool experience.
yeah. I mean, she is pretty cool.
She's pretty
I
cool.
can't deny. So yeah, yeah,
So
uh,
so we have two books and a prelude of
yeah,
sorts.
yeah.
Um, what is the plan for the series as a whole? What does this look like when it is finished?
It's gonna be 4 books, and the novella, so five books total, right? So it's 4 like main novels,
Mm.
and the prelude's already out. So yeah, Uh, yeah, I guess I did think about, maybe considering a novella for the other characters,
Yeah.
but at this point I'm so engaged in the main story that I just feel like keep just I feel like keeping on just writing it, and just get on with book 3 and book 4 and get it out as fast as possible, and then I can
Yeah.
fill in the gaps with novellas later, maybe.
Keep the momentum going. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
that's the nice thing about epic fantasy and the kind of world and history that you've created is it really gives you a lot of space to come back and do whatever you want in whatever timeline.
yeah,
Which is always nice. We're getting a lot of
yeah,
favorite characters down in the comments here.
yeah. Yeah, it's always great, all of everyone who read the book and just comments on the characters. I'm always like, as an author, it's so cool because I have the series planned out. So the big things like who's going to die, who's going to suffer, who you think is going to die, might not die. I know
Yeah.
all of that,
The
and then
mean things that only you know that you get to
yeah,
tease us with until the
yeah,
series is
exactly,
done.
exactly,
Yeah,
and
everyone loves
then
that.
yeah, yeah, and I have to try so hard to not spoil stuff, because
That's tough.
uh yeah, yeah, and John was reading the book pretty early as well, and those comments are just like every time I get a comment, I'm like, okay, finish the book so I can talk.
We could talk about it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
I
I was so yeah. So yeah, I can't
Alan.
say anything, Alan. I can't spoil. But yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
man.
there's actually a fourth POV in the second book. It's
Oh,
gonna give you
okay.
some insight into that visiting diplomat from the
So
Bislands,
is it
Alan.
a character we've met in A Touch of Light or completely new?
No, it's completely new.
Ah, awesome. Very cool. So are you just gonna
Uh,
keep adding a POV every book?
no, it's gonna be these
Just those
four.
4?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
just those four. Uh, I guess four is a significant number in this book, in this
Mhm.
series. There are 4 books, there are 4 POVs. And in Asian cultures, 4 is the number of death, and so yeah,
Yeah.
take that as you
Well,
like.
I mean,
Yes.
as a writer, I feel like there's a pretty major compliment happening for you right now, and that is that these people are caring about these characters so much that they're threatening you
Yeah,
if you kill any of
yeah,
them off, which I have noticed in the booktube community is a sign of a good story. So,
yeah,
if you're
yeah,
not getting like threats against the deaths of your characters, are you doing anything right?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
I think that's it. If no one's afraid your characters are gonna die, you need to
Start a new
start
book.
reviewing it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
especially in epic fantasy.
yeah.
Um, so of the POVs, who do you think you are the most like? This is an unscripted question, but I'm just curious, like, was there one of the characters that you had an easier time writing that felt more like there was more of you in it, or were they very much the same?
So, you know, I kind of create the characters with the objective of the story in mind, if that makes sense. So before I write the story, I sit down and I think, what's the story about? What's the kind
Mm,
of like the final message? How's it gonna end? Is basically the
yeah,
first thing I figured out because I needed to know where I was going towards, right? And
yeah,
then I created the characters that I thought would, just fit into this world that could tell me the story in the best way.
yeah.
So I don't think I really put myself exactly into the characters.
Mm.
Uh, Ellen is just spray and
Alan's
pray.
theorizing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but I do think maybe a lot of every one of them has little pieces. I
Yeah.
think that's inevitable when you're
Oh
writing.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
The fourth POV is a guy that's very analytical. He's very kind of like more towards the scientific side of things.
Okay.
I'm not exactly, you know, I'm not a scientist, but I am very analytical. I'm very
Mhm.
logic based. So it was actually, yeah, maybe this fourth guy. He's kind of a horrible person, so I don't want to say he's the most like me, but
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, I doubt it. But yeah, it is funny though. I totally agree. Like every character kind of gets a little sliver, I guess, of something in us, I feel like. So I'm sure we can
Yeah,
find something
yeah,
in why. Oh, I just saw Bo in the comments, so I'm just gonna leave it there.
yeah,
So that I'm gonna jump ahead to one of my other questions because in the end, you chose Lynn, Nasha, and Adrian to start out this story.
yeah.
So what was it about each of those characters that made them the right voice to tell the story you wanted to tell?
So I was sure I wanted to tell, the story from starting very spread out, and
Mm,
then I wanted to kind of bring it closer and closer and closer until they were, in the end, the further books they're going to be a lot closer. So, um, I think this kind of ties into to the previous answer, right? I think those were the characters that it's not like I created a cast and then picked them out and then said, okay,
yep.
this one, this one, this one. It's more like, what kind of character do I need to tell this part of the story that
Yeah.
I've created, right? And these parts of the story, they all started with kind of like the theme, right? So I knew from the beginning I wanted to tell a story that explored the way people look at death and the
Yeah.
fear that we have of death, and the lengths we go to kind of avoid it, and
Yeah.
to just not talk about it, and it's almost like taboo. So, and there are a ton of ways of looking at death in different cultures.
Yeah.
um not everyone thinks death is the end, for example,
Yeah.
but I wanted to make a world where death was really the end and that you had
Yeah.
to really forget everything. So,
Yeah.
um, that's you'll see how the beliefs evolve in
Yeah.
in future books. But yeah, uh, I guess that was where it started, and then I just said, okay, so I'm gonna need a character who's inside the church, right, to show the
Mhm.
religion, and then that was Lynn.
Yep.
And I'm gonna need a character who's kind of like royalty to show the difference between how the church dynamics works with royalty and all the politics and that. So that was Adrian. And then I need someone who's the complete opposite and outside and in a different culture altogether, and that's Nasha, right? So,
Mhm.
and then the fourth POV is kind of like someone in another country that also kind of counterpoints aside to one of the other POVs that I don't want to give spoilers. So yeah, but it's just like, okay, so I need to tell this part of the story, so I'm creating this character to do that.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. And this is another unscripted question based on just from what you were saying. I'm always really impressed when, uh, I read fantasy books written by male authors who do such a good job with female POVs. And I feel like both Lynn and Nasha were incredibly believable and authentic. And I really enjoyed reading them. So I wanted to say thank you for that because, you know, two out of the three POVs were female perspectives on the world. And I thought that they were both incredibly authentic.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, Alan agrees with you. And
Yes, yes. I really enjoyed that, and I'm always impressed by that, so I wanted to
uh,
give you major kudos in that area.
thank you. I don't think there's a secret. I think we were talking on Discord about this a little bit when we were talking about mental health, right?
Mm,
It's like, oh, Lynn, does Lynn have this? Does Lynn have that? And my answer is always no. I don't label them, right?
mhm.
I just think of them as people
Yep.
that have emotions and stuff they've been through, and that's it. That's where I stop. So
I think
you
I
know
think a lot of times people overcomplicate it though, and I think that's a great way to view it is to just come in and this is a good character and they have these emotions and they've been through these things and so yeah, I think that's a really good actually tip if anyone
yeah,
is watching this and listening.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Let's see. I want to catch up. If you guys have any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in.
Okay,
And
so I just want to highlight something that
yeah.
Bo said he was gonna boycott this, and 15 minutes in, he's threatening to move it up his TPR. So
Yes, that is a fair point. Bo's got, I don't know, Bo, do you have anything to say to defend yourself here? Alan, I make all decisions based on reason with no emotional response at all. I'm a cipher.
yeah,
I
feel like I
I've
was more like that.
seen his ACOTAR vlog. I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hi, Kay. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen one of these times.
Yeah.
So since we have Bo highlighted on the screen right now, I'm gonna take that as a natural segue into the fact that I went and looked up your Goodreads for A Touch of Light, and the first review on there is from Mark Lawrence himself, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of his review, he says, "When is the last time we saw griffins in epic fantasy?" And yes, absolutely, but you're pretty well known for your griffin obsession at this point. What do you love so much about them, and was there anything specific that you researched or thought about when you were bringing them into the story?
Yeah. So
That is correct, Alan. I also read your review, yes, and it
yeah,
was also
and
fabulous.
John Morrow, who's on,
Yes.
who's in the chat as well. I think his is the one with most likes, I think. And he posted it on Grimdark magazine as well.
That's
John's
awesome.
a great reviewer. So yeah, I didn't research anything. It's just I've always been into fantasy, right? I've What pulled me into fantasy, I think, was Magic the Gathering when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
that just stuck with me forever until today. So Magic is a very big like part of my life. So and there's naturally, griffins, dragons, all kind of mythical creatures in that card game. So and then there's like Warcraft 3, just the lore of it was a very big inspiration because I loved that game as a kid. And when you really love a game as a kid, you just kind of create the world in your head it's more emotional than memory, right?
Yes.
You kind of remember the emotions that it gave you. So and there are griffin riders in that game. So I said, I mean, I never even once considered dragons, because not because I don't like I don't like dragons. It's just because it's been done, and I don't think I
Yeah.
can do it better than what's been
Yeah.
done. So I just said, I like griffins, and let's do it. And then I guess I became the face of the franchise for griffins, so to speak.
Well, that's okay. I think honestly, griffins are one of those creatures that I kind of feel like they're so versatile in what you can do with them as a mythical creature. And I mean, fantasy is pretty open as far as that goes in
Yeah,
general, but griffins, especially, like, there's really a lot of different ways you can portray griffins.
yeah, yeah.
The real question, Thiago, is what color or colors do you play?
Blue, obviously.
Yeah, I remembered that from the Discord. You were picking on me for being black and red.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree,
Yeah,
Alan. I think dragons are always going to be awesome, and they're always going to be a core part of fantasy, but for sure,
yeah,
it's time for
yeah,
some griffins and some other things to take center stage for a little while.
yeah.
Kay has a question.
I mean, Kevin might sneak it in. So to anyone who didn't catch the interview with Kevin Kemp, the audiobook narrator, who's become a great friend, he said his griffin would be named Cuddles.
Perfect.
So
Well,
he
now
might
you have
sneak
to
it
do
in.
it.
Yeah, he might sneak it in, and if I don't catch it, then you get Cuddles.
You'll never know.
Yeah.
Joshua Edwards, or were they in some of the Harry Potter books? Yeah, I think Buckbeak is technically a griffin, isn't he?
there are hippogriffs in Harry Potter, which
Yeah.
I honestly don't know.
It's a subgenre of griffins,
Yeah,
maybe.
I guess. Uh, but yeah,
Yeah, Alan, that is blue in a nutshell right there.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
It's the most fun you'll ever have. Just say no. Saying no is so fun.
Yeah, but I can do that in black and red too, and just like Doomblade a couple of times, and everybody's like, "Ah."
Yeah, yeah,
It's great. Um, well, getting away from the Magic the Gathering, we'll have to have a discussion on my channel of Magic the Gathering apparently sometime.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. We'll have
so
to do
you
live play.
that would be really fun actually. So you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, but where was the original spark of this story where you were, sitting in your chair one day and all of a sudden I want to write about, or I'm going to write a book about, like, where was the original kind of spark for that?
So that wasn't something that just kind of came to me. And I think this is a really good just kind of thing about my process in general is that when I decided I wanted to write a book, I told myself I was going to study it like it
Mm,
was, college or something. And I actually started to read books on how to generate ideas and where to start and where to get stuff, right? And one of the coolest techniques is asking what if. But
mm,
mostly people just say, pick something you're passionate about and and think about the story, right?
yep.
And those are all great pieces of advice, but they're really hard to implement. It's like you'll sit there for days saying, "Oh, what am I passionate about? What do I want to do?" And it's like, so to me, I ended up uh, kind of. I don't think I did this at the time. Maybe it was just lucky, but I did, get a little bit of that advice and say, okay, so um, I'm not a person who's very emotional about death, but that doesn't mean I didn't like the people who are gone, right? So
Yeah.
because I'm not bawling up and crying at a funeral, you know, that people have different ways of showing emotion. So and
Yep.
I wanted to kind of that always I always carried that with me. Um, so I really wanted to explore death, but I didn't just want to say, "Oh, this is a story about life and death."
Mm.
I wanted to think about, okay, what's the message that I want to give? I'm not going to tell you that because that's the conclusion of the story.
We'll
But yeah,
find out eventually.
yeah, that's how the series ends, right?
Yeah.
But that's just like, okay, so this is the theme, right? So the theme is the exploration of death, and once
Yeah.
you have that, then you start creating the world. It's like, okay, so this is the point I want to get to. What kind of cultures do I need to show this? And then I was like, okay, so what if I had like a goddess that valued life above all else, and then she just left one
Mm.
day, and then people need to need to kind of find a way to bring her back, because when she comes back, she's going to bring the worthy back to life, right? So that was the premise, and it's all based on the fear of death, because we fear losing our loved ones, and we fear to die, and because of that fear of death, I said, okay, so for that to work, we need people who can live forever, right?
Mm.
Otherwise, what are they doing? so and one thing starts to link into another, and then suddenly the world starts to grow, and then and that's why I say I'm very logic based, because it's like, okay, if we have that, then we need this. It's an if then
Yep.
formula basically in
Yep.
Excel, but it's infinite, right? And then
Yeah.
that keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, and then suddenly you have the world, and it's okay. I have the cultures. I have I have all the structures inside. The political structures, the religious structures, and everything else. And then you say, okay, so what are the characters that I need to guide the reader throughout the story?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then that's That's it, basically.
I think that's a really good point, though, because when I have new writers come up to me and ask, like, for how do I start writing a book? What if is the exact answer I almost always give them is even if you don't come up with a whole book the first time you ask the question, just getting used to looking at the world around you and thinking about yourself and other people and what if this and what if that happened. And eventually you're going to hit one that's like, ooh, what if? And then you'll go farther with it.
Yeah,
So I think that's a
yeah,
really good
yeah.
point.
And I mean, answering this, this is a cool point because I always tell people they read books that are published and they say, I can't write because I don't write at that level. I can never publish at that level. So that's the same thing as as the as the answers that I'm giving right now, right? Because
Mm,
I'm giving you the answer after the book is written.
yeah.
It's I wrote this on my first try. My first draft was horrible, 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 and it didn't stop me from just kind of beating my head against the wall and keep going.
Yeah.
Uh, but the essence of what I wanted was in my head. So even if I didn't have the skills to execute it yet, the essence of it was in my head, and I knew the kind of story that I wanted to tell. And
Yeah.
that's really all you need if you want to
Yep.
start writing. So the skills, the execution, you can learn, you can practice.
100%. Totally agree with that. Um, I'm kind of along with that. What elements in a story, and these can be things that you enjoy reading or writing, what elements do you think really make a story great? Like what about these stories makes us go back into them and love them over and over and over again?
So I'm gonna default to the first craft book that I ever read that talks about something called the third rail, which is the rail in the subway. That's the only one that actually is, electrified,
Mm,
and which is the rail that keeps the subway car going. Um, and I think that's the best explanation I ever had of why we keep coming back to books. You can have an awesome plot, you can have an incredible magic system, you can have everything, everything. But if you don't have that internal character motivation that shows their evolution, then your book is gonna feel hollow.
mhm.
So I think that's the answer. You need character development, and that all goes back to this to why we tell stories. If I'm getting too philosophical here, going on
No,
tangents,
absolutely not.
but you know, in 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 prehistoric times, we didn't have long distance communication. If a tribe encountered a saber tooth and another tribe didn't encounter a saber tooth, the tribe who didn't encounter a saber tooth wouldn't know what to do with it. It wouldn't know if it's dangerous or not. So the way that you know if something is dangerous is telling people that Bob died when he would try to pet the saber tooth. So stories were a survival mechanism. And
Mm,
that's ingrained in our brains. We tell stories to survive. We tell stories to learn things that we haven't been through,
mhm.
right? And that's why the third rail is directly linked to character because it shows because we don't have saber tooths walking around today, so and we're not going to be attacked by lions on the street, but we do have other things
Mhm.
that even if we're in a fantasy world, how do we deal as people with the conundrums and the choices that these characters go through, and that's the third rail.
Right.
So that's what gives a book life, in my opinion. And you
Totally
can
agree.
link that to everything, right? To theme and to everything else that I was talking about.
Yeah. I That's one of the reasons why if I write or read rather a book that the plot is it's okay, it's not like the most amazing thing I've ever read, but those
Yeah,
characters are incredible, I don't care. Like, the
yeah,
plot, I will 100% stay for the characters every single day because
yeah,
you're right, that's the kind of the beating heart of any story, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah.
Alan would have died trying to pet a saber tooth. Honestly, m I don't know if she's still in the chat, but my best friend Sarah, who's also on the Discord, absolutely would have been the one trying to pet the saber tooth as well, so you're not
Yeah,
alone.
yeah, yeah.
Wizard is here. Hello.
Hello, Andrew.
Alright.
Yes, Alan, man, Alan just shares all of my opinions, and we never talked about raisins, but I knew he hated raisins because we're too alike.
Yeah,
So,
kindred
so yeah,
spirits. Yeah.
yeah,
Let's see. Okay, going along with the elements, and this is kind of a little bit more specific, but what are your favorite and least favorite tropes? And that can be in reading or writing.
So my least favorite tropes are it's just basically miscommunication, you know? It's like it's right there. You just have to talk about it and be an
Mhm.
adult. And I hate it because it's lazy, because the author is using it as, an artifice to get what they want, and it's not natural. So I really dislike that trope. And there are a few others that are kind of like everyone just kind of doesn't really like, I don't know, love triangles and whatnot, but yeah. And I'm not sure I really think in tropes I love, to be honest.
Mm,
Um I just try to be, as unique as I can. And I'm pretty sure there are tropes, but I didn't do tropes consciously. I
sure.
never, said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this because this is this trope and I love this trope."
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there are the big tropes like the chosen one trope, for example. I actively avoided that one
Yeah.
because, again, it's too beat up already.
Yeah.
So uh yeah, I don't know if I could say, I have this favorite trope. I really like expertise, if that
Mm,
counts. I really like when the character is really, really good at something,
yeah.
because that normally, and don't it's not like a Gary Stu or a Mary Sue, um, but when it's done well, they normally have something that's beneath the surface that balances them out. And the best example I can say for this, which to me is unjustly criticized, is Kvothe from Name of the
Mm,
Wind. Because yeah, he's great at everything, and his emotions wreck everything, and then he just becomes this cannon that can't control his emotions, and he
yep.
wrecks everything because he can't control himself, and he's so good at everything, but he has no emotional control.
Right.
So so yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that counts as my favorite trope.
Yeah. Well, one of the, I would say, elements, I don't know that I'd go so far as to call it a trope, but one of the elements that I really appreciated in A Touch of Light is um, that you kind of put a really solid, fresh twist, I guess, on the kind of undead element that we
Oh
see a
yeah,
lot in fantasy. And I really appreciated that because it felt very new to me. And like
yeah,
I wasn't reading the same version of that as I had before. And I really, really liked that.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I never actually thought of them as undead, to be
Hmm.
honest.
Which is probably why
uh
it works so well.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I didn't even know how to tell you, oh, I thought about undead, but then I changed this, and then that's how they became unique.
Hmm.
It's just people are going mad. They're going out of their minds. It's
Yeah.
just what would happen to someone if they were really, 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 really angry, and then they got angrier, and that's and then
Yeah.
they got like their nails grew into claws, and they got like feral. So what will happen? So
So
yeah, I
you're
guess.
you're writing more in the werewolf theme of undead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Griffins
non-shape-shifting
and werewolves.
werewolves.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. Um, one of the things, since you had your smallest editor on a little bit earlier, what this is something that I've asked all of my author interviews so far because all of you guys are also parents.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is, how do you find the time? This is a question I get asked all the time. How do you find the time to parent and also write a book, much less an epic fantasy series?
In one word, you have process in one word. I said in one word, and I was gonna say a ton of words. So yeah, you have to have a process. Uh, yeah, I don't sleep.
Tiago doesn't sleep. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's the real
Um,
secret.
but yeah, I mean, it is process, because you need to kind of know how to go about it, and you need to have control over your writing, so that when you do have time, you can sit and you can do it, right?
Hmm.
So the secret to me is just to do something enough times so that it becomes, a habit, and then you eventually are going to be productive, right? And Alan is actually one of the people who really helped me evolve the process for book two. He doesn't even know it because he would do these sprints,
Oh
and
yeah.
I was sometimes struggling because my wife was pregnant. And now the baby was born in August, and she was born a little earlier than we expected. She wasn't premature or anything, but she was born 37 weeks instead of
Hmm.
40. Um, I was a little thrown off suddenly, and then Alan just had these sprints that lined up with my times, because the first thing that you need to define in your process is what time are you going to write. And a lot of people just say, oh, I don't have time. Yeah, it's okay. And Andrew said I don't sleep, and yeah, I write from midnight to 3 a.m. every day.
Wow.
That's the time I found I feel comfortable. I'm not telling you to stay awake and don't sleep, but it's the time I found that everyone's asleep and that I have silence and I can concentrate, and it doesn't affect my day job, not directly at least, because I do feel sleepy. But I mean, I'm working from home, fortunately, so
That's
I
awesome.
can I can stretch my sleep time a little bit more, and you know I made things work within my schedule, and I think that's the first thing. Just look at your schedule, write it down if you need to. You will find gaps. You will find,
Yeah.
and if you have like 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, try to reorganize things so that you have like 1, 2 hours. I don't know, and
Yeah.
then find a way to be productive in these 1, 2 hours, right? And the sprints that I was talking about, I realized that if I wrote for 40 minutes, procrastinated, did whatever I wanted for 20 minutes, and then wrote for 40 minutes, and then did whatever I wanted for 20 minutes, it was enough to kind of like let my mind rest. It gave me
Mm.
time to do the stuff that your brain keeps telling you to do when you're writing. It's like, no, this is writing time. These 40 minutes are writing time.
Yep.
And you're gonna have 20 minutes to watch YouTube videos and do whatever you like. But these 40 minutes are sacred writing time. Right.
Turn off
And
Discord during
yeah,
those.
yeah. And it's kind of uncanny how it works for me, because just knowing that is the specific writing time, and then I am gonna have time to do everything else. And it's not gonna be in 3 hours. It's gonna
Yeah.
be after I finish this brief little sprint.
Yeah.
Right. And I started to be more and more productive, to a point where there was sprints that I got like 1,000 words done in 40 minutes, which is actually quite a lot for me, at least.
Yeah.
So
That's good. Yeah.
um so yeah, and I found a ton of resources. There's this website called Focus at Will that has
Oh,
this kind of soundtracks that help you focus. So I started using that and doing 40-minute sessions, and it just your brain understands that when that starts, you're supposed to be writing, and stuff starts to flow. and
yeah.
and the process is also the kind of like the secret of not waiting on the muse for ideas, right? Because when you create that process, you're gonna start stuff's gonna flow, man. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, kind of advice for writers and new writers in general is just the importance, and we kind of chatted a little bit about this before we went live, but just the importance of, I think, learning your process is a big part of learning your voice as a writer and
Yeah.
your strengths and weaknesses. And like, oh, I know that if I woke up at 5 a.m. like Andrew Meredith does, I
Yeah.
would have nothing coherent
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I'm a night owl, that's the time that works for me, and obviously the time that works for you. And that's part of it, is just knowing yourself and what distractions you need to cut out and the process that you need to make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I sometimes try to sneak in, when you have that kind of 1 hour or at least 40-minute session. I just sometimes try to sneak in a writing session during my lunch break,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
it starts getting easier. So sometimes I get 40 minutes that I can write during the day, and I do it, and then I'm suddenly more productive that day, because I'm still gonna have my extended writing session at night. But you know
Yep.
that's the stuff that your brain starts to get used to, and it stops being a monster, I guess. It stops being, that, oh, I need to write. I'm not writing. I should be doing this. It's like, no, it's fine. And part of having that session at midnight is uh, it really helps me because my brain doesn't tell me you should be writing, you shouldn't be with your family, you shouldn't be watching TV.
Right.
No, my time to write is from midnight to 3 a.m. If I'm watching TV at 10 p.m., I'm fine. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yes.
So
Yep.
so yeah.
Yeah. NC has a question. How do you make a project feel fresh after editing and refining so many times? That's a good question.
Fresh to me.
Yeah, like how do you, I don't know, NC, if I'm misinterpreting this, feel free to correct me, but
It's like,
like
do you get bored of it?
yeah, like going, I think for me at least, going back into the manuscript that many times and rehashing it over and over, like keeping up that drive
Hmm.
to finish it and making it still feel, I guess, still feel
So
the fun a little bit.
yeah, yeah. So this is just my way of thinking. It might not work for everyone, so be careful. Is what I'd say. Um, because I don't want to spoil the joy of writing to everyone. But
Mm,
I kind of break up writing into joyful creativity and you know, successful obligation, let's call it.
mm,
So there's a part of joyful creativity that is awesome. It's when you're drafting, it's when you're writing, you're throwing ideas down, and you can do that with abandon, right?
mhm,
And then there's the responsible success. I don't even remember what I called it, um, which is okay. So now's the time to understand that you need to fix this and that this is a product. This isn't some, it's your art. Yeah, fine, it is, and I appreciate that, and I think it's great to think of it like that. But if you're selling a book, it's a product, and that's how I see it.
yeah,
If I'm asking people to pay money for the words that I wrote, it's a product, and I need to be responsible for that product. So maybe working 10 years in corporate life is what made me think like that, but
that's fair.
uh, it's a product, and you need to do it, and there's no two
Mhm,
ways around it. So, will it feel fresh all the time? No. Um, do I visualize myself, getting more readers, getting more people talking about it because it's going to be a lot better because I am hunkering down and slogging through it if I need to? Yeah.
yeah,
So so I don't mean to, crush your writing dreams and say it's not supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be fun. I still, I mean, it doesn't not feel fresh to me because I
mhm,
love editing. I love
yeah,
editing because I love seeing the final product. And
yep,
I've always been like this. I love seeing a finished product, and I love just rereading all that stuff and seeing, wow, this is so much better than when it started. I
yeah,
love that. And that's the drive that keeps me going, I guess. Is it fresh? No, it's not fresh. That's why I asked what do you mean by fresh?
yeah,
Because it's still fun to me,
yeah.
but it's impossible to be fresh after like draft 20, you know?
Yeah, well, and
So
I think you made a good point too, because there does come a point where, yes, writing is fun, but if you're just writing for fun, and I know friends who haven't made the jump to I want to be a published, professional author. That's the thing, is they kind of see it, and see, I'm not by any means saying this is what you're saying because I know better, but I know other people who definitely kind of have this like surprise at the commitment, I guess. Like, oh,
yeah,
well, you
yeah,
mean you have to write it more than once? And yeah, like you're right, it's not always fun. And sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, if I have to rewrite this scene again, I'm
yeah,
gonna go nuts.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the payoff is really great when you have that final product.
yeah.
Uh Katie wants to know, do you write sequential beginning to end order, or do you jump around in different sections when you're motivated to write them?
I have to write sequential.
Hmm.
I there's if I try to jump ahead, there's that little voice at the back of my brain that says, but you don't know how you're gonna get here. How you're gonna write the scene if you don't know everything that happens up to this point. So
Yep.
I just cannot do non-sequential. It's beyond me. I can't do it. And again, that's part of the process. A lot of people are going to prefer to write what strikes the mood, but
Yeah.
I just can't. And I'm an outliner, so I do kind of know what's going to happen, but I also give myself space when I'm writing the scene to let it go wherever it's going. And sometimes sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, the outline changes a lot. So
Mhm.
I end up with something kind of different, but that still hits all the milestones that I set at the beginning. So um, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it's sequential, and I write characters separately the first time to keep their
Uh,
voices distinct.
that's smart.
So I write a character from start to finish, then I jump to another character, write that character from start to finish, and I do that for all the characters. It also helps me editing because my editor is amazing, and he lets me send him the first character while I'm working on the second, so things go faster that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually.
Yeah.
Josh Edwards, how many drafts do you normally go through? We talked about this a little bit earlier. The
I honestly
sigh.
stopped. I honestly stopped count. I stopped counting after a while. You know what's the problem? I don't I don't know how to label something as a new draft. If I'm changing a scene, a lot, I kind of save it in a new file. Just say I'll keep this old file and then I'll label it a different kind of version. So maybe that's
Mhm.
another draft. But if you're saying like every little thing that I change is a new draft, oh, I don't know, hundreds. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's say I don't know, 5 to 6 big drafts. I guess
and then
maybe.
count you're probably pulling out individual scenes in the middle of that and working on or
Oh yeah, yeah,
stuff too, yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
Um, kind of going along with that, um, I know that Touch of Light has been out for a little while now, and I'm
Mhm.
curious if you would give us a little bit of some insight into how self-publishing has gone for you so far, what you like/dislike about it, and what made you choose that option?
Oh man, I'm really happy that I picked self-publishing as my path.
Mm, we are too.
Um, because it gives me a level of control over my process that trad doesn't. I mean, trad is awesome, and trad is a benchmark in a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to self-publish because you have to do everything, and don't underestimate the power of having to do everything.
Yes.
You
Yep.
have to do marketing, you have to do like you have to talk to artists to do covers, you have to do editing, you have to, and sometimes you just want to sit down and write.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's by no means easy,
Mhm.
but it just gives you so much flexibility to launch books whenever you want to launch them faster than trad would. And it just gives you, I guess it gives you direct access to people, and it gives you more flexibility money wise as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, the way that trad works, and Mark Lawrence has started a few videos on his on YouTube. He has a channel. He has an excellent video about how trad authors get paid. And what actually is left for them is a lot less
Mhm.
than you'd imagine from a big deal. Because the way it happens is you get in trad, you get an advance, right?
Yep.
And then you have to kind of live on that advance until your book sells enough. So if you got like, I don't know, $10,000 as an advance, which is or at least was the standard, um, then you have to live on those $10,000 until your book sells enough copies to make the
Mhm.
publisher $10,000. Then you start getting royalties.
Right.
So it can take a long time to get money, and the royalties that you get are a lot lower. So you can't justify paying for your own marketing, for example. You can't justify a ton of stuff that you can explore with self-publishing. I'm not saying they're always good things that you do with self-publishing, but you have that flexibility. You have
Yeah.
the flexibility of kind of doing it your way. And I've seen a ton of I think Anna Smith Spark from Godline. Uh the first book is Godblind. I forgot the name of she has a ton of books. She was trad. She has a blog post saying that she's going back to work, even after being a pretty recognizable name. Um, and it's because, you don't have control over how much money the the publisher puts behind you,
Right.
basically. So just knowing that I have control, I might not have the money, but
Right.
if I plan it and say, okay, if I can get this amount and then do this, it's in my hands. I have that control. I know
Right.
that I can do that, right? So
Yeah.
that just lets me sleep a lot more soundly than thinking that this is in someone else's hands and that I'm gonna have to convince someone to believe in me.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with self-publishing.
That's awesome. I'm getting a question from Kevin about what influences your writing the most.
Mark Lawrence. As you can see from my Mark Lawrence shelves
Do you
here.
have a
Uh,
favorite Mark Lawrence, out of
uh,
curiosity?
I really, really like Book of the Ancestor, but his voice,
Hmm.
just the way that he writes, his prose is spectacular. Um, and I don't know, he's so smart about it, and he knows how to create incredible worlds without
Mhm.
having to hammer you over the head with those worlds.
Yep.
He knows how to put a light touch and stuff. So Abeth is an incredible world, and the way that he kind of meshes sci-fi and fantasy is
Yeah.
awesome. But yeah, I mean, I have a few other influences. I read a lot of Abercrombie. I really like the way that he does a lot of his stuff. Uh, and I guess for such a light, I had read Fifth Season at the time, which I know is one of the books you're scared to read, and you should totally
Yep.
read it. Yeah, it's awesome, and it has an incredible magic system. It's so cool. It's so cool.
I have heard that.
Um, yeah, and a lot of that influenced me as well. And of course, Name of the Wind, the way that Patrick Rothfuss just leaves all the clues in names in plain sight. Uh, it's yeah, those are the big ones, I guess.
Yeah. NC wants to know, would you ever pursue trad publishing like hybrid authors?
I mean, I never say never, but I need to understand. There are too many details to answer that with a yes or a no, I guess. Um, I am always open to everything.
Yeah.
Is my positioning on that, I guess. I'm always open to listen to what people have to say if they're interested, and I'd be flattered, if a trap publisher wanted to pick me up for something. Obviously, I'd listen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but to make this clear, some people think self-publishing is because you didn't manage to get picked up by trad. I never even wrote a letter, so
yeah.
I never even tried because I
I think
picked
that's
self-publishing
becoming a
as my
lot
path.
more common now
Yeah,
because
yeah,
yeah, no, I mean, like you and a lot of other authors in the indies, and that's just the way they wanted to start.
yeah.
Josh Edwards is not making money. Apparently, you
Oh no,
guys
I
need
was
to
talking
go
about my
buy
day
his
job.
book.
I was
Go
talking
buy
about my day
Josh's
job,
book.
Josh. Yeah.
Let's see. Bo added another book to his TBR above Touch of Light. Everyone acts shocked. Um,
Everyone that shot quick.
hey, Troy. Let's see. Yeah. Well, my last question for you would be after you
See,
finish Ashes of Averin,
yeah.
what are your plans for the future? Like what other things are you interested in writing about? Where do you see yourself in the next, so many years, 5, 10 years as a writer? What's the next steps?
I have a few projects. Nothing that's really set in stone because when I focus on something, I really focus on that thing.
Yep.
So I'm really focused on finishing this and being the best I can about it. And I just I know I was talking again to Andrew Meredith about this, and he has this kind of whole backlog of stuff he wants to write. If I had that, I'd start to worry about using ideas
Mm,
in one series and not the other. So I don't even,
cross-pollinating.
yeah. So I don't even want to think about other series normally, but I do have an idea that's been brewing since, while I was writing in Touch of Light. And you're gonna say I'm a Blizzard fanboy, but it will be pretty Diablo kind of like
Ooh,
inspired. Yeah, because
I'm here for that.
Warcraft 3 is one. Yeah. Diablo was tier one to me over Warcraft 3. But Diablo 2 was the best game of my childhood. You know, childhood and teenage years, I guess. Uh, Man, I just I love everything about that. And if you start researching it a bit, you'll see that a lot of Diablo's lore actually comes from apocryphal texts, which are books that are not considered official by the church and are not in the Bible, but they have these really, really cool stories.
Hmm.
And my favorite is the Book of Enoch, and has some really cool stories with the stories about the Watchers and the Nephilim,
Yep.
which are just basically kind of like giants that are children of angels and women, and these angels became fallen women, fallen angels because they not fallen women, they became fallen angels because yeah, because they had children with the women, and they became Nephilim. And fun fact, your characters that are powerful and magical in Diablo are actually referred to as Nephilim, not humans. So there's spins on that. So that the influences are there if you know where to look. So
Yeah.
something based on that, angels and demons stuff. Maybe
Yeah.
not. I don't know. I'm thinking about it, but I'm not actually thinking about it.
We're
uh,
thinking about Ashes of Averin right now.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I want to make sure we really quickly get to Troy's question. Do you have a place in Averin we haven't seen yet that you're most excited to write about?
So I think by the end of the series, you'll have seen all the nations. Uh, I think the two big nations that you haven't seen yet are the Vislans and Viscara. Because if you count the novella, you've seen Dakra, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so I don't know. I'm pretty excited to see what people are going to think about Shadow Menace. Let's
Yeah.
just leave it there because I'm going to see there a few other places.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Thank you so much for jumping on my channel this evening and being willing to chat about your book.
Thank you.
All of Thiago's links will be in the description box below. So if for some reason you haven't read A Touch of Light yet, Bo, you should go grab that. Also, just found out, was it today or yesterday, you posted that The Broken Binding is going to be stocking some signed copies.
Signed, line, dated, and numbered. It's limited to 150 copies. So, and it's
I've
going
got
live
it on my radar.
on Tuesday. Yeah, it's going live on
Yeah.
Tuesday.
That is awesome. So yeah,
Yeah.
check that out. And also tomorrow you have your cover reveal for The Shade of Madness,
Yes.
which has been much anticipated
Yeah.
by the masses. um, and I definitely have no idea what it looks like. So
Yeah.
definitely keep an eye on Thiago's Twitter, I'm assuming is where we'll be able to see it first, probably.
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I've had because of time zones. I think the people. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe someone in the UK. Maybe Dom will be the first because he's in the
Okay.
UK.
Yeah.
And I just told everyone to post it whenever they want to post it. No time. So, yeah, it's gonna pop up tomorrow
So
because
half
a
my
ton of
feed on Twitter will be your cover
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah, yeah. And I'm
Nice.
doing an Ask Me Anything on Reddit as well. So if you
Oh,
want to
cool.
just pop in and write a question on there, it's text based, so you know I can answer throughout the day.
Nice. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Well, yeah, thanks again, Thiago, and best of luck with Shade of Madness and also with the Spiffbo announcement for finalists. We'll be
Yeah.
crossing our fingers for you on that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure I will have you back on the channel at some point to talk more about the series and future projects.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much. This
Bye,
is great.
guys.
Thanks, guys.